Christ is risen. I'm going to need your help some during the sermon, so a couple of times I'm going to say Christ is risen, and I'm going to give you the this and just exclaim it back. Christ is risen. Let's practice. Christ is risen. Oh, indeed. Sorry, add the indeed. Christ is risen. Christ is risen. Alleluia. Christ is risen, but she doesn't know it yet. It's still dark when Mary Magdalene wakes up that morning, and she is not greeted by alleluias and exclamations of a risen Christ. It's been 3 days, and still she wakes in grief. There are no words for the heaviness within her, but we know the weight of it, don't we? The kind of grief that questions how we could possibly keep going on living when they don't exist in the world anymore. Mary doesn't walk to the tomb in hopeful anticipation. She walks in deep sorrow. In her grief and her yearning, she goes to be near. But she gets there and she finds it empty. And to her, this is not a sign of new life yet. And we can feel the hurt and the longing in her words. They have taken away my Lord, and I do not know where they have laid him. But this empty tomb is good news for Mary. She just doesn't know it yet. Christ is risen.
Christ is risen indeed.
Alleluia, Christ is risen, but he doesn't know it yet. Peter awakes in grief too, but it feels a little different. As he mourns the loss of his friend, a pang of grief and guilt twists in his stomach. Maybe he's been looping the events of that week in his head. When it came to stand with his teacher and his teachings, he didn't. And he wonders what would have happened if he did, if he was braver. Perhaps we know that kind of feeling too. Mary comes in crying, they have taken the Lord out of the tomb and we don't know where they've laid him. So heart racing, Peter jumps up and he and the most beloved disciple take off in a foot race. And the writer of John's gospel makes a point to say that the beloved disciple outran Peter and arrived at the tomb first. And this visual tickles me a little bit. I imagine our teens running around in this space, being kids, taking pride when they finish a foot race first. We don't know how old the disciples were, but many scholars suggest they were likely teens themselves. What a heavy load to carry. Peter goes into the tomb and finds it empty, just like Mary said. But this empty tomb is good news for Peter. He just doesn't know it yet. Christ is risen.
Christ is risen indeed.
Alleluia, Christ is risen, but they don't know it yet. The ones who were shouting in the crowd, the leaders who orchestrated his death. Pilate has washed his hands. They took the rabble-rouser, the one whose teaching threatened their systems of power, and they hung him on a tree. It's done. It's over. Look, they said, your leader and his upside-down kingdom kind of ways, this is what we did to him. We killed him and we'll kill you too. Can't you see we have power enough to turn your shouts of Hosanna into shouts of crucify? But they don't know that it is not done. The stone has been rolled away. They don't know that this empty tomb is good news, even for them. Outside of this empty tomb, Mary sits, and a man, a gardener, she thinks, comes up to her and asks, "Woman, why are you weeping? Who are you looking for?" "If you have carried him away," she cries out, "tell me where you have laid him." But he looks at her. "Mary," Jesus says, and her heart catches. Recognition and love and joy and emotion she can't fully comprehend begin to flood her. "Rabboni, teacher!" Mary runs to announce the good news. Christ is risen, and now they know it. Christ is risen, and it is good news for Mary, for all who carry burdens of grief. Christ is risen, and it's good news for Peter, for all who stumble and regret and need forgiveness. Christ is risen, and it is good news for all who follow Jesus. It's good news for the widows and the orphans and the lepers and the oppressed and all who have been cast out. It's good news for all who were left hopeless when their Messiah breathed his last. Christ is risen, and it is even good news for empire, for Pilate and the Pharisees and the tax collectors and the crowd shouting death. Even in their complicity, they cannot escape this story. It is an indictment, and it is for them too. Because today we celebrate the resurrection of our God incarnate, who fleshed up to walk alongside us, to experience every beautiful and devastating and confusing and conflicting part of being human. We shout Alleluia to the God who weeps with us when we are grieving, laughs with us when we celebrate, journeys with us when we have far to go, and suffers alongside us when we hurt, even when we are the makers of our own pain, even when what causes our suffering is our participation in systems that are unjust and dangerous and deadly. We celebrate a God incarnate who holds us when our suffering is beyond our understanding, who calls wholeness in us when our souls are fragmented because we are the perpetrators of oppression. When our shouts turn from Hosanna to crucify, Christ suffers, and Christ suffers with us. When they killed him on a tree, his death was supposed to be a symbol that empire had won, that liberation was beyond grasp, that their systems of power cannot be escaped, whether you are oppressed by them or your very body holds them up. Resurrection is an almighty response to the forces of empire that threaten the wholeness of the oppressed and the oppressor. You cannot kill divine love, resurrection proclaims. Not even death can destroy the persistent love of a God who always speaks truth to power. And that is good news for everyone. And so year after year, we come together to tell this good news story. And it's an old story. Many of us know it by heart. But it's also a new story, forever revealing itself. Walter Brueggemann has something to tell us about stories such as this. We love to tell the old story, he says. We love to sing the old song of your saving deeds of mercy and freedom and healing and newness. We know about Exodus freedom and dancing tambourines. We know about land and huge clusters of grapes. We know about rivers of water and rivers of oil. We know about the strangeness that the blind see, the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, the dead are raised, and the poor rejoice. We know. Give us the courage to trust what we know and to obey what we hope. For we know that the old story in our telling becomes a new, dangerous, transforming song. And so we sing. Christ is risen and we know it. And not just because we tell the old story and flower our cross and exclaim Alleluia, but because we see it. Because we see the ongoing story of a risen Christ, and we hear the ongoing song of a resurrection people unfolding before us every single day. We know that Christ is risen, and we hope that his spirit of radical, resurrecting love will abide with us always, guiding us in the way of goodness. And we know it will, don't we? Because nothing can stop divine love. Not even the going of the one who taught us what that love looks like. When Mary recognizes Jesus outside of the tomb, she tries to cling on to him, but he retreats from her, for soon he will ascend. Once again, Jesus will be gone from them in body. And this withdrawal, it's part of the story too, but not as an end, but another beginning. In our text from Acts, Peter proclaims that the messages of peace preached by Jesus Christ, the news of his resurrecting love, is spreading. And in that message, a command to preach to the people and testify to the way of Christ. Mary Magdalene is the first to share the good news, but she won't be the last. Peter, the beloved disciple, Thomas, James, John, Mary, Martha, Jesus' family and friends go forth and build the church, proclaiming the way of their teacher. Tabitha gathers a community of widows together in Acts and shows them how much they matter. She brings healing and inclusion where there is outcast. Martin Luther tacks a letter to a door and says, "This is not the way," reforming a system that privileged the wealthy and the educated, offering voice and agency to every believer. St. Francis calls the people to remember that all of creation is part of this story, preaching that the peace of Christ be extended to every single living thing. John Lewis and Baynard Rustin teach us to make good trouble, holy trouble, testifying to God's relentless pursuit of justice. Amanda Gorman reminds us that there is light if only we are brave enough to be it, to see it. Because we are divine love here and now. And resurrection is all around us. We bear witness to it and we call it into being. Resurrection was proclaimed at the empty tomb. Resurrection was birthed again and again and again, and messages of peace spread across time and place. Resurrection burst into flames at Pentecost to remind us that we indeed are divine love embodied. Resurrection came into being through Mary Magdalene, through Peter, through Tabitha, through Martin, through Francis and John and Baynard and Amanda, and through you and through me. Resurrection springs forth here and now in words of hope, in blooming trees and babies born, in clothing closets and food pantries, in mended friendships, in convicting conversations, in acts of kindness, and in glimpses of justice. Resurrection is like the breath of God that has been and will be ruminating within and among us in every single bit of creation from beginning to beginning and from end to end. Resurrection does not take away the pain of our world. It does not save us from hurt, and it doesn't keep us from hurting others. And resurrection does not mean that we are not sometimes convicted, but resurrection is always good news for everyone. Resurrection is always bringing about transformation and breathing life where there was death. Church, we profess to be a countercultural, Jesus-following, upside-down kingdom kind of place. We are Easter people because we proclaim that Christ is risen, and we are Easter people because there is no story more countercultural than this one. Resurrection was a counter-response to a system of power that felt itself unstoppable. Resurrection said bodies and dignity and health and well-being matter on this earth, in this place, right now. And resurrection is good news for us. As followers of the one who turned everything upside down, who centered the marginalized and cared for the vulnerable, resurrection is good news for us when we are the very best of who we are, working in the world to make all things whole. And resurrection is good news for us even and especially when we fail to be who we claim we are. Even in our complicity, we cannot escape this story. It's an indictment, and it is good news for us, for all of us. This story, the one we know by heart, calls us to transformation, to wholeness. This story compels us to use our bodies and our minds and every part of who we are to sing as loud as we possibly can a new, dangerous, transforming song. This story urges us to be active and engaged participants in our own healing and in the healing of all people and all things. This story, embodied in our very breath and our very beings, reminds us again and again, every day as we see it revealing itself, that we are divine love made manifest. So friends, may we not be dismayed too long by the brokenness of our world, of ourselves, but with hope and spirit and love and conviction, may we go out into our world and breathe life where there is death, testifying to the good news of the ongoing, ever unfolding story of a risen Christ and a resurrection people. May it be so for me and for you. Christ is risen.